It's funny because I made all the money, right? Like I made a ton of money and it was not freedom. I was making so much money and yet I was chained to my desk. I look at Donald Trump, politics aside, with great admiration.
You cannot judge what someone else feels about freedom because this is their freedom. This is their heart.
Elon Musk believes he has to save the world. He believes it is his responsibility.
I can promise you for a fact that a lot of the expat lifestyle people that are there is a big part of them that are not happy. Hi, welcome to the One Freedom Formula podcast. Today I have Jillian Sidoti with me, a life business architect, former attorney. I said it, former attorney that is actually building freedom for people through financial freedom and having to help so many entrepreneurs, including Grant Cardone. Jillian, pleasure to have you here today. Really excited for this interview.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
So tell me, the first question that I'd like to ask, which is most probably the most difficult question of this podcast, is what does personal freedom mean for you? And why is it so important that you made all those changes in your life?
Yeah, the big thing about personal freedom is it's funny because I made all the money, right? Like I made a ton of money and it's not, money is a huge aspect of it. Money definitely we cannot discount, the value of having money to do the things you want to do. But for my case, with like the fact that I had this very successful law firm, I remember very clearly in 2018 sitting at my desk and just wishing the whole thing would blow up because it was not freedom. I was making so much money and yet I was chained to my desk. And so freedom really is about your ability to do what you want when you want to do it in the way that you want to do it. And, that doesn't mean that you're not restricted because we all have responsibilities. I have 3 kids and those 3 kids have to go to school. So that means you can't just get up and go to Ibiza one weekend or something. I've never been to Ibiza, but that was the first thing I could think of. So you just can't go out, get up and go party. You also have to be a responsible citizen. So again, you can't get up and go to Ibiza and do a bunch of drugs and, because that's not freedom either. That's actually a different kind of, slavery, we'll even call it, because you're a slave to drugs and party life. So freedom is truly understanding what your restrictions are and being okay with those restrictions and then working within that framework to build the life of your dreams.
I like that. So I have actually created a quote about freedom that I will give you right now. Freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That is actually chaos. Freedom is a result of the choice and focuses on doing the things that bring us a sense of freedom, joy, and purpose.
Yeah, you know what? That is such a great way to look at it. And because you said the best part of that was the last part you said about purpose, because if you don't have purpose, everything else doesn't matter. Nothing matters without the purpose.
Yeah, that's Jim Carrey said it recently, like, we don't matter. And it's so freeing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we always think, I've always seen that we have those big careers, we have those big titles, we have those money, we have those things. But all of that, it doesn't really make you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily give you purpose or freedom. And one person that I know, for example, for him, freedom is actually going to work 9 to 5 and being home with his kids at 6 every day and taking care of them until they go to sleep. That's freedom for him. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Like, I have to say this, like, there have been many times in my entrepreneurial career where I wish I had that, where it was like, I go to a job, I do what I have to do to make the money I need to make. And then I come home and I leave the job at work, and it doesn't follow me home. And, when you're an entrepreneur, that's one of those freedoms you don't have. Your work always follows you wherever you go.
No, that's no, when you're an entrepreneur, like, there is no stop button. There is no you leave it at the door. That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur myself, it's like, it brings you another type of freedom, which is the control of your life also.
For sure. I do think that, I prefer an entrepreneurial lifestyle, but I remember not too long ago, I used to tell people that I had 2 dream jobs. One was a tiki bar bartender, right? Like on the beach somewhere, and just bartending. And the great thing about that is that, most people who come to a tiki bar are on vacation. You're never going to see them again. They're in a good mood, right? And you're giving them a drink to lift their spirits. And then the second one was Starbucks barista, because again, people are usually coming to you in the morning. They're grumpy. You're giving them something that's going to lift their spirits, and then they leave, and you get to go home too. And that's it. And that's the end of the transaction.
Okay, Starbucks barista.
Yeah, exactly.
I have been to a couple of Starbucks, even if I don't drink coffee and I don't really like Starbucks. Not the place where the people are treated the nicest in terms of being a barista, like.
Yeah, I think it's all relative, right? Because I used to live in this town, I used to live in I wouldn't call it a small town, but I lived in a town in Southern California that was not, Los Angeles or San Diego or a major city. And I remember I pulled up to the Starbucks drive-through, and the woman who was serving me my coffee, I said to her, I don't even know what brought me to do this, but I would see her very often, and I said, you seem to be here the longest, and you also seem to be in charge. How did you end up, with this job? Like, what brought you to being a Starbucks store manager? And she told me that she used to work somewhere else. I don't know where else she told me she worked, but she used to work somewhere else. She started working at Starbucks because she had her shift was like 4:30 in the morning to like 10:30 in the morning. So she was done with work by 10:30 in the morning. She has a kid who has autism, and so that gave her the opportunity to make sure, her kid was home and spend time with her kid after school. She said the people were super nice. She got to know the regular customers, and they tipped her well. And so I think that might even be where I got the idea of like, oh, I want to be a Starbucks barista, because that to me sounds like ultimate freedom.
Oh, yeah, it sounds really good.
Yeah, right.
Part of the work that I've done with people is about redefining what freedom is. And in a way, what I've realized, and I've said it in several podcast episodes, we have this kind of vision of what freedom is based on what social media or Hollywood sell us. A lot of people think freedom is having a private plane or having a laptop on the beach and so on and so on. The truth is, this sounds much more like freedom for me than being with a laptop on the beach. And if you ever have been on a beach with a laptop working, that's not the place you want to be.
Oh my goodness. I will tell you, I went to a hypnotherapist in the middle of all of my, stress and anxiety and working a ton. I went to a hypnotherapist, and the question she asked me stayed with me forever. And that question was, I want you to remember the last time you went on vacation without your computer. and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And it was like, that really spoke to me, because you're absolutely correct. Like, that's not freedom. Working on a beach with your laptop while you're, and your kids are like, mommy, build a sandcastle with me. And you're like, I just got to finish this one thing. It's not freedom.
I have another one like this. When was the last weekend you didn't pick up your cell phone to look at your email or notifications?
Yeah. For me, I mean, I was able to get out of the rat race. So I can say, like, my last weekend, I didn't look at my notifications. Like, even this weekend, I really didn't do much. I wasn't feeling great yesterday. So I kind of just like watched TikTok all day, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, there was definitely a time in my life where I was always looking at my phone constantly, and for work purposes, not for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, well, and so, looking at all of that, all those stress, all that part of your life where you're a big successful lawyer, and then like, okay, I'm gonna burn out if I continue. What was the past? How did you move and change your measure of what success and fulfillment is?
That's a good question. Honestly, what ended up happening for me is I got a rude awakening, which was great. At the time, it didn't seem so great, but at the end of the day, it was great. What had happened was I had a business partner, the partner at the law firm, who actually really did me dirty. That's the best way to put it. And that resulted in, threatened lawsuits and a bunch of other stuff. But what I was able to do was I was able to get a lawyer. I got the lawyer. The lawyer basically got rid of the partner, and I was for very, very, very little money, like an obscenely low amount of money, I was able to get rid of the partner. And when that was at the height of COVID, this was the summer of 2020. And then the business actually started doing really, even after he left, the business was doing really well. But I turned to my other partner, who happened to be a woman, and I said to her, what do you want to do? Like, I asked her, what do you want to do? Because I was very concerned about my employees and her and that partner. I was concerned about them. I wanted to make sure that they were being taken care of. I knew my employees themselves were terrified about, employment, especially because we're in the middle of COVID. So I had, and now this office, with the exception of very few, were all moms. They were all moms who had kids that were at home because of COVID. And they weren't in school, so they all had to be home. So we all had to work from home. Everything changed for us. And that partner said to me, Jillian, I just want to go back to being a stay-at-home mom. Like, she didn't want to work anymore. And I said, okay, then we have to work with that. If you don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to do this anymore. It's time to figure out what else we can do. And sometimes you're just not brave enough to do it yourself. You got to have that push. And I had that push. Mm-hmm. And the push at the time seemed like the biggest tragedy in the world. Like, I did not sleep, literally did not get sleep for like 2 months straight. It was like, 2 hours of sleep a night, just full of anxiety, stress. And the minute that, solution came, it was like all of the stress was lifted off. And it was like, oh, I don't need to be a lawyer. I don't need to do this. You know how many people out there aren't lawyers? A lot. So guess what? I don't need to be a lawyer either. And now, and I have this asset that I did kill myself to build. So let's find out what it's worth and sell it to somebody. And that's what I did.
Yeah, there is more non-lawyers than there is lawyers.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a huge pool of choices.
Yeah, exactly. So that made it really, really easy.
Yeah, I mean, COVID was in a certain way, it was a great equalizer for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You had the same constraints wherever you are, whatever your position are. Most people, and in Europe, it was even more drastic, I would say, than in US on that. Most people actually got out of the city. They got to, like in Belgium, there was an explosion of houses with gardens. People wanted to buy houses with gardens. In France, people were leaving Paris and leaving the big city to live in smaller cities, to have a bigger house, better life, and all of that. And so there was this kind of reset also about, what is life and what is success, and all that. Not only the rat race per se, because people were still in their job, they were just working from home, but they discovered a better way of working and living by being at home. Like, you work, yes, but how many hours do we invest in coffee machine talks?
I know.
They're just pointless.
Nonsense.
For most of it.
Nonsense, yeah.
And if you want to socialize, you can still do it. Like, I have been working before as a consulting VP for an Indonesian company. I live in Taiwan, and my teams were Singapore, India, Indonesia. Worked perfectly well. Visit them once a month, something. We have a nice meeting, and that's all. People were happy. They were working. They could have more time with their family. They have, and I think that's one of the things that you said. Like, all those moms, what they wanted, it was security, but it was also the time with their family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, this is, and that's what bounds to a question. But for me, it's one of the misconceptions about freedom is like money is the criteria for freedom. But then, as you said, when you were having a lot of money, being a lawyer, you were not feeling free at all.
No.
Not at all. I think a lot of time, and I plead guilty on that. I've been, in high position in startups and company, and you have the CEO that comes to you and you need to do that. We want to do that. Can you do it? And you're like, yes, I'm most probably. When you say that, you don't even know. And I think one of the best things that when you have freedom, like real freedom, you have the ability to say, I don't know. You have the ability to just admit what you know and what you don't, and, react honestly about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just be honest about it. And that was a big difficulty for me in being a lawyer, is that you couldn't. The good thing about the type of law I practiced was I wasn't going up against other lawyers most of the time. I didn't do litigation. I did corporate work. For again, you mentioned Grant Cardone. For him, I worked on all his funds. Like, he had another in-house lawyer who did all his litigation and things like that. I didn't have to deal with any of those things. It was funny too, because I tell this story from time to time. When in the thick of working for Grant Cardone, at one point in time, one of his guys offered me the opportunity to move to Florida and be their in-house counsel, and I was like, "You guys work too much. No, thank you." They work tirelessly. They work way more than I am comfortable with over there. So I was like, "No, no, 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 no. You couldn't pay me enough money to move there. Sorry, and be in-house counsel."
Yeah, he is known for that. He is known for
no. He is, what you see online with him is exactly who he is. He works that much. He said, he has a phrase, "You can't outwork me." He's not kidding. He's not kidding. He's very sincere about that.
Yeah, I believe. been following him quite a lot at one point, and yeah, this man is an insane worker. Like there is several people like this. Like there used to be Kobe Bryant before he died. It's like same. This guy was like in a basketball court. He would outwork anyone. Michael Jordan. Like those people, they just sheer brute force. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm always asking myself, are they really free? And for some of them,
it's
yes.
Funny.
That's
because it's their brand of freedom, right? Like it's what they want to do. I mean, look at whatever you think about American politics. I look at Donald Trump, politics aside, with great admiration. The man is a 78-year-old man who's out campaigning to become president of the United States again. He doesn't have to. He already did it. He proved it. He proved that his billionaire self could become president of the United States. He's out there killing himself to try to do it again. He has the money. He has more money than, Grant Cardone. He does not need to do any of this. And he's doing it. So I think it's just different for different people. I wouldn't be doing what Donald Trump's doing. That sounds exhausting. I wouldn't be doing what Kamala Harris is doing either. It also sounds exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, look at Elon Musk, for example.
Another one. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's their definition of freedom. Elon Musk believes he has to save the world. He believes it is his responsibility. No, again, it's something I completely admire. Not for me.
Yeah. Oh no,
can do that.
That's the point. It's like one of the big points about freedom that I wish people understood more. It is entirely personal.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot judge what someone else feels about freedom because this is their freedom. This is their heart. This is not yours.
Right.
This is not mine.
Right.
This is theirs. And so the problem is a lot of people have lost the ability to look at what it is exactly for them and more are looking at what others are selling them that it should be. And I have the luxury with my wife, who is Indonesian, we generally go to Bali once a year for a month. I can promise you for a fact that a lot of the expat lifestyle people that are there is a big part of them that are not happy. They are not as happy as they think they would be when they arrive. Because they didn't realize that what they were looking at as a freedom was not what they were sold on.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, it's funny you mentioned Bali because I went to Bali just, 6 months ago. And it's so funny because it is like a third world location. But I never once felt unsafe, except, if a moped was going to hit me. That was the biggest risk to me was those mopeds racing.
The biggest risk in Bali is not the Indonesian on scooter. It's actually the foreigner on scooter. I had so many risks of accident because there is people driving without a license that have never driven a motorcycle, that rent one, and that just drive like insane people.
Oh yeah, no, that was not for me. That was not going to be me on those mopeds. I was comfortably in a car, but yeah. So that to me was the biggest risk. So you saw this like objectively, you saw this like poverty, but you also saw this love of their religion that seemed very peaceful. It involves flowers and spice, spices. We were, Bali, although Indonesia is like a lot of Muslims, that Bali is very Hindu.
Yeah.
And it seemed very, very peaceful. Like it didn't seem like a massive obligation to them, like that they loved being part of this religion. Every car that I got in had like the little flower, basket offering in the car. We had a driver who was just so happy to meet tourists and drive them around and, make $50 a day. Like $50 a day was a great amount of money to them. And I found this, this isn't unique to Bali. This is very much I think the Western world doesn't understand this phenomenon, which is like when we were in Tanzania, my partner Jeff and I, and my business partner, he actually was a lawyer too. And you should definitely, if you want to talk to somebody who knows something about freedom and surviving and finding freedom after survival, you should definitely talk to him. I should introduce you guys. But my business partner Jeff and I, we went to Tanzania actually to buy a safari lodge. And we didn't end up buying the safari lodge for a variety of reasons, but we went there to buy it. And when we were there, we were talking to the owner of the safari lodge, and he straight up we said, okay, one of the things we're going to do when we come here is we're probably going to double the salaries of all the employees because we can afford to. And we want to do that. And he just looked us dead in the eye and said, do not do that. That means nothing to them. Like, they don't want it. They want time. If somebody's, grandmother dies, you better give them ample time to go mourn that loss. That's what they want. They want time. They want time. They want time with their families. They want time off. They do not want more money. And so that was very interesting as well. And oddly enough, that very guy who we were going to buy the safari lodge from ended up being in Bali when we were there. And so we all hung out in Bali, which is just so ironic. But yeah, so it's funny what freedom means to different people, because you look at the Elon Musks, the Grant Cardones, the Donald Trumps, or even people like Richard Branson, who's now dedicated his life to philanthropy. It's just a different way of being, and it's a different definition for every single person out there. And to be honest, I think the definition changes with you as you grow over time, right? Like your definition of your own personal freedom changes. Because I've spent the last 3 years, to be perfectly honest, I sold my law firm. I sold it in 2020, so 4 years ago. And actually 4 years ago yesterday, exactly. And in selling it, I ended up not like doing anything for a long time, and then volunteering my life away and completely throwing myself into volunteer situations. And now that's all gotten old. Now I want to go back to making money. Now I'm like, okay, 4 years is long enough. I want to make some money now.
Well, I will come back on Bali a bit later, but on what you said, it's true, because look at kids. Kids are the definition of freedom. The reason why...
They don't know that, though, do they?
They don't. But if you look at it, they also don't have an idea of what life should be. Mm-hmm. They don't have an idea of, I want to be on the beach. They're discovering. So I think also a big part of freedom is the discovering part. The more we discover new things, the more freedom we gain. At least that's what I feel. I've moved countries several times. I lived in Indonesia, Germany, was born in France, now in Taiwan, visited, 20, 30 countries by now. Every time, you are absorbing something new, it's freedom. For me, at least, that's part of it. And I love your story about Bali. Yes, the moped is definitely. And to be honest, all over Indonesia, In every place that I've been, people are really, really nice. It's a really nice population. And it's a third world country in many ways. It's also a developed country in other ways. Like if you ever go to Jakarta, you will understand what I mean. It's like there is the worst traffic jam in the world. There is big fintech. There is a lot of VCs money. There is a lot of companies. But there is one particularity that most people don't know about Indonesia. It has actually 6 official religions.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, and they are officials.
Wow.
And so,
well, yeah, and I don't know about Taiwan. Well, I suppose like Europe doesn't have official. Most countries in Europe don't have official religions.
Most country in the world doesn't have official religion.
Don't have official, yeah, because the United States doesn't have an official. Like, I mean, that's what our First Amendment's all about: is freedom of religion. So,
yeah. So France neither. But if you go to Vatican, yes, the Vatican has an official religion.
Yeah.
If you go into several countries, there's still. But this is the only country in the world that has 6 official religions. And as much as the majority of the population is Muslim, in Bali, especially in certain parts, is Hinduism. And they have what you were referring to is the offering baskets. So they change every morning. Like they do that every day. They have this offering basket. And they have rituals that are incredible, like melukat, which is a cleansing ritual that I've had the luxury to do twice. Those are beautiful things to do. But they are, for them, as important as for you to eat. Like they don't question it. It's just, this is what their life is about. This is the rhythm of their life. This is their freedom. They are not constrained to do it. They just do it because for them, that's important. And that's one of the things that I would say I've seen the in Europe, decline of Christians, Catholicism and all of that. There is far less importance to religion in some community, and then on others there is another really strong importance of religion, and this has been fighting. While in Indonesia, in places like Bali, it's like peaceful. It's surprisingly peaceful. Whatever your religion has, no one cares. Everyone is living happy and peacefully, and that was like amazingly beautiful for me. It's like how people, and you can be a white person and everything, as long as you're respectful, you will have amazingly grateful people in front of you for everything that you're giving them. And what you said about the money is also one thing important. Is like people think people want money, and that's not necessarily true. What they want is respect first. So the first thing is like respect. And as you said, for some of them, they need time, because if something happened and all of that. But for me, time is also, giving time is a form of respect to the person. You're like, okay, you need something here, I'm here. It's a partnership. And so there is this, I don't know if you know that, but there was this study that was made. Don't remember which country, but they did 2 things. They took employees, and on some of them, they increased the salary. On the another company, they increased the flexibility of work and the time freedom to have holidays and all that. The company with higher salaries had higher turnover. People were leaving this company more. The reason why is because they only look at the money and they say, oh yeah, I have more money, but I work so hard. Oh, let's see if another company will give me more money than them. And they found another company that gave them more money. And so they're like, okay, well, I have the same condition, but I have more money. The people who had more time and more flexibility, they're like, no, I'm in a comfortable environment. Yeah, maybe I could have made more money, but it's comfortable. I have freedom in my work. And say, that was a big thing, like, oh, always thought about money, but that's not what the true freedom was about for people.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is you mentioned a religion, and I happen to be Catholic, and I live in Puerto Rico right now, and Puerto Rico is a very Catholic country. The issue we have, my family has, is that all of the churches here don't have any English masses at all. So we've gone a couple times. We've sat there. I can understand. Like, I speak Spanish. My kids and my husband does not. My kids speak a little bit. So it's a challenge, especially in a church situation. So we haven't been to church, and actually we find that to be very, very restrictive. You think going to a Catholic church, it is everything against freedom, but there is great freedom in knowing that you have a safe and maybe not so much safe, but a comfortable place to practice your religion. And it's not comfortable when you don't speak the language. So,
I think that's a great point. Whatever your religion are, I think having a place of worship, if you're religious, is a really important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if you know about this building, but there is one building in the world that is like this. In Berlin, in Germany, they built a religion center where you have a place for Catholics, a place for Jews, a place for Muslims, and a place for any other religion that want to worship in the same building. And that is incredible, because like I have studied several religions and been practicing some of them. And know I'm basically I'm like you. I don't have a church here. So mine is in Jakarta. So we have online services, and when we go there, we go visit. But the ability to mix religion and spirituality in a peaceful way is incredible. For me, it's just like you're giving freedom to different kind of people, different kind of ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. I mean, that's one of the great things about living in the free world is you get to choose whatever religion you want, whenever you want. You could switch whenever you want. I mean, I don't know if that's good for your soul, to be honest, but you could. Who am I to judge? Do whatever you want, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah. For me, I won't go into the story here because it's a long story, but I studied a lot on spirituality and religion and all of that. I was not specially raised into religion. I still had practice and all of that, and Bible studies and all of that. So if you ask me Bible studies, I can read a lot of it and tell you a lot about it, but it didn't, when I was a kid, it didn't really work with me because the way it was practiced at that time were not making me free. It was actually something that didn't give me freedom. And a big part of it was because no one really told me about what spirituality is and what religion actually is. They told you, this is a book, respect the book, that's it. Listen to what we say. And that didn't work with me. I was someone who I always wanted to understand things, so I had to study where it's coming from, where is the Bible coming from, where is the religions coming from, what's the story behind it, what does it mean to actually be engrossed into it and to actually feel that part of me is religious. But I digressed a bit on that. But part of my freedom for me was the fact that I could actually explore and learn. That's how I found religious freedom or spirituality freedom, which I think is an important part of being comfortable in your faith. So, as you said, being religion, I don't know. I remember the Cancer Society. You were on the board for that. Something that touched you. That's what make also giving back even more valuable and more purposeful. As you said, it's not about giving money. Money is one thing, yes, but more than money is what impact are you giving?
The thing is, you can give away money all day, anywhere you want, and make no impact whatsoever. I mean, that's actually something you really have to start thinking about too when you start making money. When you have the money to give away, and it always, you know what? The thing is, I say you can always give something. You can always give something, whether it's time, talent, or tithe. Money. But I think we do have a responsibility to make sure that our money is going to the right places. And I used to be one of these people who'd just be like, oh, you asked me for it, I gave it to you, and then didn't really think much about it. And then, you start, the older you get, the more you realize, like, I won't pick on any particular charity, but you realize, like, just writing a check to any old charity is may not be the best use of your money. This goes back to point number 1 of purpose. What's your purpose? And does point number 5 fit within that purpose?
Yeah.
So, it's funny because I started off this conversation talking about how I spent, years volunteering after I sold my law firm. Before I even sold the law firm, for 2 years, I volunteered at a food pantry. And the jobs I did at the food pantry were like they were menial tasks. And I ended up working at that food pantry for 4 years. And the only reason why I stopped working there was because I moved from California to Puerto Rico. And I'm still super great friends with all the people who work there and volunteered there. That was the best time of my life, was going in and literally putting together boxes of bread and cooking. And I cooked breakfast for my first 2 years. I cooked breakfast. The second 2 years, I was in charge of giving away baked goods. And that was the best time of my life. And it was hard work from the perspective of there was a lot of lifting and moving and standing and physical labor, but that was the best time of my life. And it involved no money, just me showing up on Wednesday mornings and, at 6:00 in the morning and staying till 10 a.m. and just giving away bread. So, yeah.
I always say, if someone thinks something about you, the first thing is, it doesn't really matter. The second is, it's not your responsibility. And the third place is, anyway, it's not true.
Yeah, exactly. And even if it is true, who cares?
No, but it cannot be true in a certain way, because it's only a thinking. So the way we think is relative to our own vision of the world. So from our own formatting, from our own experience, for all of that. It is not a truth. It is an objectivity. It could never be a truth. Because two people will think differently because they have two different frameworks. So how could it be a truth?
Right.
So it's just an objectivity about you. It's not the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't be more right. That's correct. Yeah. For sure.
When you think like that, it's like, it's freeing, because like, okay, whatever. Yeah, that's your objectivity. Sure. But that's not true. Well, then whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, what any human really thinks of you. There might be some humans that think certain things of you that matter to you, but most, I love the phrase of, it's a Dr. Seuss phrase, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind.
I love that sentence. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's a beautiful sentence. I wish I'd heard that one when I was like 3-4 years old. I would remember it today. But this is a great sentence. Now, one last question. If someone were to start their path to freedom today, what is the one thing you told them to do?
The one thing I would tell them to do is if they want real freedom, they have to write that down and write down what that looks like to them. Write it down. Because until you write it down, it's not going to become real.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one, to always have this. And people use visualization board, they use Post-it, they use whatever they want, but having it somewhere, make it real.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, Jillian, was really a pleasure to do this podcast with you. Amazing discussion. And I wish we had more time. I wish we had so much more time. I would have been a really long discussion, but it's such a pleasure.
No, thank you so much. I love doing it. And, we should get together again soon. I'll have you on my podcast when we start booking again.
Anytime. Just shoot me a message. I will definitely join.